Hello, World Wide Web. Hello, YouTube fans. Hello, Rob. This is Locke back at you again, and I'm coming at you with some more advice on a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. This is the tarot that we're going to be talking about, and so I decided to address a certain somebody who I have a great deal of love and respect for, Rob Morrow. You guys may not recognize the name, but you definitely recognize the face if you ever watched Northern Exposure or if you are currently watching Numbers. He is the star of that show, Numbers. And he was also the star of Northern Exposure. I speak to Rob because Rob is somebody who should love and enjoy being underestimated. Because this gentleman, every time that he's come up with the show, I never originally watch it because I don't think that it's going to be something that I like, and then it turns out to be something that I absolutely love. Which, because he did something before he did Northern Exposure, and I didn't think that I would like it, and I ended up liking it. But when Northern Exposure came out, I didn't watch Northern Exposure for years because I just did not really think that it would speak to me whatsoever. And then I finally did get on the Northern Exposure bandwagon and never regretted it. Had a wonderful ride with that show. So when Numbers came out, I immediately assumed the opposite of what I had priorly assumed. And so I got on board with Numbers immediately. I said, no, if Rob is behind this and Numbers, and also, of course, I'm about numerology. I love numerology, which Numbers has nothing to do with numerology, but I would love for them to do a show about numerology and look into the numbers of numerology because I think that would be fascinating. And actually, the character that plays Rob's brother wrote a book that would actually be near and dear to the subject of numerology and what numerology talks about, but looking at it from the numbers point of view, which is good. But that said, and notwithstanding, I want to get back into the tarot, which is the subject of which I'm going to be talking about now. In my last installment, I was talking to you about the different elements that are applied to the minor arcana of the tarot. And I was talking about how they, in particularly, the beauty of this card system and the beauty of this system should one take the chance to look at it and note it. And what the tarot talks about and what this is talking about is the blending of elements on this material plane. We are on the plane that is called Earth because we stand on solid ground. So, and when you look at it, also we are incredibly material beings. There's no other life form that puts as much worth and as much thought into the cultivation of the earth to make into things and to generate into things that we consider to be valuable other than human beings. And this very thought pattern makes us very unique on this planet and has allowed us to dominate this planet and has allowed us so that there are very few life forms on this planet that do not know of our existence. Very few life forms that we share this planet with. Well, actually, there are a lot of life forms that we share this planet with that don't know of our existence. But in our egotistical mind, there are very few life forms that exist on this planet that do not know of our existence because of our ability to cultivate and use Earth. Okay? But what the tarot says and what alchemy says and what magic lore basically says is that there are only 4 different elements on this planet. Only 4 different. I'm going to try and hold this up correctly. Oops. There are only 4 different elements on this planet. And any other element that you come across is just a different version of one of those 4 different elements. Now, this is a very common theme if you study certain forms of divination, as, for example, numerology. Numerology says that there are only 9 different numbers on this planet. Every other number that you come across is just a different variation of one of the original 9 numbers. And numerology goes forth to set a very compelling argument for that and to prove that. just as uh, with the tarot states that there are only 4 elements, and every other element is just a different type or different version of that element. Very, very compelling evidence in regards to that. If you look at science and you look at well accepted science now, it's something that I knew way back then because I've been studying tarot even back then. If you look at science, science breaks up the elements or the periodic table or chart of elements into 4 different groupings. Okay, so you have your gases, which would correspond to the element air. Okay, you also have your solids, which would correspond to the element earth. You have your liquids, which would correspond to the element water. And then finally, you have plasma. Plasma is what is considered to be matter in a superheated state or form. Okay? And plasma, therefore, would come under the auspices of fire. Okay? And so those are the main groupings of your elements. Now, it's very, very interesting to note that the tarot, alchemy, alchemists, magicians, shamans, have been saying this for centuries. Okay? Nigh on to millennia have been saying that there are only 4 groupings of elements. And then there was a time in European American history where elements were being discovered. And as these elements were being discovered and categorized, it was said that, you know, magic and superstition, this is just voodoo and everything. And there are not just 4 elements, there are all different types of elements. And now we understand, now that we're coming back to understanding ancient knowledge and appreciating ancient knowledge, that no, there are many different types of elements that come under the same, that can come under this subtitle. So I wanted to talk about that and the observation of that, because you have to understand the elements and the mixing of elements. That is one of the main things you have to be able to understand before you begin to attempt to read the cards. You have to look at the elements and how they mix together and how they blend together and how well they blend together. So for example, if you have a reading where you have a number of coins come up in the reading, and then the next most number of cards come up together would be water, well then what you have is basically a really good reading. Of course you have to look at the nature of the cards in the water to see if the water is bad or negative water, just as you have to look at the coins and see if the coins are good or bad. But basically, what happens when you place water onto the earth? Well, when you place water onto the earth, then things can grow from there. Of course, if you put too much water, then you can have a flood. Or if you have too much earth and not enough water, then you can have a drought. But basically, when you're looking at earth and water, they work very well together. Same thing if you have a reading and you have a lot of swords, which is air, and then you also have a lot of fire coming up in this reading. Well, then what you also is, you're having a very quick, spontaneous reading, but you're having something that is good, because air needs fire to burn, and fire burns in air. The same thing, though, you have too strong of a wind, you have to look at the air and the fire and the balance of it. You have too strong of a wind, you're going to blow the fire out, right? You have too strong of a fire, then it's going to suck up all the air out of the atmosphere, and it's eventually going to douse itself out also. So you have to look at the blending of the elements, but basically you have a positive message that's coming forward. Now, you have a blending of fire and earth. This is also somewhat of a positive, but it's not really all that great, because you don't want to think about somebody's house burning down. But at the same time, in order to have fire, you have to have something other than oxygen. You have to have something for it to burn with, and you're looking at earth for it to burn with, and then that's a good mix. Now, conversely, you see fire and you see water together, well then this is not good. This is not good at all, because fire is going to douse water, water is going to douse fire, and fire is going to boil water. So you're looking at a mixture of cards here that you're going to be a little bit concerned about. Same thing if you look at air and earth together. You put air and earth together, then you're again looking at something that, whenever you have a strong amount of wind and you have a bunch of earth, you get a dust storm. You can't see very well. Things aren't being exposed very well. So these are things that you want to consider. I'm looking at my time, so I think I'm close to running out. So I'm going to say lock out from here. I'm going to say see you later, Rob Morrow. Talking to you in the here and now, but I'll be seeing you in the there and then. The question is, who's going to find me first? Lock out.